Boom! An ear-splitting explosion rips through the morning rush hour on Dizengoff Street, right in the beating heart of Tel Aviv. 1 second the bus is just another crowded ride, people reading newspapers, kids laughing, drivers honking. The next second it becomes a roaring fireball of twisted metal and thick black smoke. 22 innocent lives are erased in a single heartbeat. Blood sprays across the pavement. Screams tear the air apart. The stench of burning flesh and gasoline chokes everyone nearby. Just months later, the exact same nightmare strikes again at Beit Lid bus station. 2 thunderous blasts in quick succession shred a group of young soldiers. 21 more lives gone in seconds. Both attacks carried the same sickening signature. Bombs deliberately packed with carpenter's nails and metal ball bearings, so every explosion would turn human bodies into shredded meat. Israeli security forces were staring at a ghost they could never catch. They couldn't see his face, but they felt his bloody signature in every street of their cities. To them, he was the engineer of death, the man who had already killed more than 80 Israelis and wounded hundreds more. To millions of Palestinians, he was simply al-Muhandis, the genius who turned a briefcase and a university degree into the deadliest weapon their side had ever known. This is the true story of Yahya Ayesh, the man who for 5 terrifying years outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and humiliated the most powerful intelligence agencies on Earth. Stay with me, because what happened next will shock you even more. Everything began in a tiny stone house on the green hills of Rafat village in the West Bank. Little Yahya was a quiet, dreamy boy who barely spoke. While other kids kicked a football in the dust, he was inside, surrounded by broken radios and old televisions that neighbors brought him. With tiny hands he would open them up, stare at the wires and circuits like they were magic, and somehow bring them back to life. People started calling him the little fixer. That quiet boy with the magical hands would one day rewrite the rules of an entire conflict. No one, not even his own family, could have imagined what was growing inside that curious mind. At school, Yahya was a walking miracle. His math and physics grades were almost perfect, 19.5 out of 20, and he finished exams faster than anyone else. Teachers whispered in the corridors that this boy was special. In 1987, he graduated from Birzeit University with a first-class degree in electrical engineering. But every day he crossed checkpoints, saw the walls, felt the occupation. The dream of a quiet laboratory job slowly died. Then one rainy afternoon in the university library, he found an old, dusty research paper about explosives. He read it once, twice, and something inside him clicked forever. Using nothing but his genius and household items, Yahya created acetone peroxide, the explosive so unstable they called it Mother of Satan. Made from ordinary hair bleach and fertilizer you could buy at any farm store. One wrong move and it could blow up in your face. To pay for the very first secret tests, he did something heartbreaking. He sold his wife's gold jewelry, the only valuable thing they owned. When the first Intifada exploded, he became Hamas's secret weapon and invented something terrifying, the suicide vest. A normal-looking jacket that hid death underneath and turned an ordinary person into an invisible walking bomb. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin was so furious he personally signed the secret kill order and shouted, "This madness must stop." But Yahya lived like a phantom. He never slept 2 nights in the same bed. He slipped through checkpoints dressed as a woman or a religious Jew. He refused to touch a telephone, terrified it was tapped, and used only trusted messengers. When the West Bank became too hot, he climbed into the trunk of a food truck, lay among boxes of vegetables, and was smuggled into the crowded refugee camps of Gaza, disappearing like smoke. Shin Bet realized chasing bombs would never work. They had to strike his heart. Yahya had one unbreakable weekly ritual. Every single Friday morning he called his father just to hear his voice and know the family was safe. That call was his only emotional lifeline. Shin Bet discovered he was hiding in his friend Osama Hamid's house in Gaza. The key to the trap was Osama's uncle, Kamel Hamid, a businessman who sometimes dealt with Israelis. They convinced him to give his nephew a gift, a shiny new Motorola Alpha mobile phone. They told Camel the phone was only for listening, but inside its plastic body, Israeli bomb experts had secretly packed exactly 15 grams of military-grade RDX explosive, enough to kill but perfectly shaped so the blast would be focused like a laser. Friday, January 5, 1996. Gaza was deathly quiet. The safe house landline suddenly went dead. Yahya had no choice. He picked up the gifted phone. High above, an Israeli helicopter hovered silently. Agents waited with headphones. The phone rang. It was his father. Yahya pressed it to his right ear and said softly, "How are you, Baba?" Voice recognition software instantly confirmed. It's him. A tiny but terrifyingly precise explosion happened inside the phone. The blast was engineered so perfectly that the windows didn't even crack, and the man sitting right next to Yahya was completely unharmed. But for the man holding the phone to his ear, it was instant death. At only 29 years old, Yahya Ayesh was gone. When rescuers lifted the body, half his face was missing, but his right hand, still clutching the phone, was untouched. Palestinians saw that intact hand as a divine sign. Even in death, the engineer never let go of his weapon of knowledge and resistance. More than 100,000 people flooded the streets of Gaza for his funeral. Yasser Arafat called him the martyr of Palestine. But his death did not bring peace. Just 9 days later, his students unleashed a wave of revenge attacks that killed dozens more Israelis and completely destroyed the peace process. Today, Hamas's most advanced long-range rockets proudly carry his name, Ayesh 250. His killing became the first time in history a mobile phone was turned into a remote assassination weapon. A dark tactic the world would see again decades later with exploding pagers. The story of Yahya Ayesh is not black and white. To Israelis, he remains the architect of terror who brought unimaginable pain. To Palestinians, he is the brilliant son who fought back with nothing but his mind against overwhelming force. Hero or villain depends entirely on which side of the border you were born. But one truth stands above everything. In the invisible war of intelligence, even the simplest everyday object, a phone call to your father, can become the deadliest weapon of all. Thank you for staying until the end of this intense journey. If stories from the hidden side of history fascinate you, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us for the next deep dive. Drop a comment. Do you think technology in war is making conflicts more humane or more terrifying? See you in the next video.